introduction, and I'd like to thank Tricycle magazine for allowing me to participate in this wonderful series. So today I have a PowerPoint. I thought it might be easier for people to follow this way. Those of you that are listening only by audio, everything that appears on the PowerPoint, I will also be expressing that, stating that in my talk as well. So you'll be able to hear everything that's on the PowerPoint, even though you can't see it. First of all, just to preface a couple things, I have a little bit of allergy, so I may sneeze or cough through the talk, but it's not a cold, and I'm quite well at this time. But I always have some allergies out here in California. So I'd like to begin now. Let's see, starting with our fear, anxiety, and isolation of our coronavirus that we're all experiencing now. So we fear, what if I get it? What if my loved one gets it? And so we're all faced with a great deal of fear and anxiety at this sort of very difficult time. So we have this fear of the unknown, fear of getting ill, fear of even possibly dying. And so how do we deal with all of these fears that we are experiencing at this very, very difficult time? So Buddhism offers a path of inner spiritual fortitude. And that's what helps us to get through this kind of difficulty. Buddhism cannot help us to prevent getting the virus. It's not some kind of miracle or anything like that, miracle teaching, but it can give us an inner spiritual fortitude to deal with many of life's problems. All of the life's problems that we face, I think Buddhism enables us to resolve them and live through them. And of course, sickness and death are perhaps the greatest of the problems of life that we all have to face. But our Buddhist predecessors, like Shinran Shonin, the founder of our Shin Buddhist tradition, he lived through tremendous chaos and turmoil during his time. He lived in a period of Japanese history called the Kamakura period, and there was political upheaval, there was famine, there was pandemics, and so he faced great crisis. But yet, although he faced such chaos, he expresses in his writings that the path of Buddhism is an unobstructed path, meaning that nothing in life is a hindrance or an obstruction in how one lives, not even failure, sickness, or death. So I'd like to share a true story about one of my members. Last year, I lost a wonderful member to pancreatic cancer. I had known her for all 33 years of my ministry. And what her family shared with me about how their mother faced this pancreatic cancer, I think is quite amazing as it reflects her life as a Shin Buddhist. They shared with me that throughout her bout with cancer, her demeanor never changed. Her demeanor never changed. Meaning from day one, when she was told by the doctor, have terrible news, you have pancreatic cancer, it's quite serious, her demeanor was always positive and cheerful. Is that right, doctor? Thank you very much. Then they tried chemotherapy. It was not successful, but her demeanor was still the same. Thank you, doctor, for trying. All the way through to the very end, her demeanor never changed. So when we face such difficulties in life as we're doing now, if we have an inner spiritual fortitude, it enables us to live through it. Sometimes things like meditation can be a helpful tool in facing it as well. So I'd like to share with you today sort of three forms of meditation. First, sitting meditation, which you might be very familiar with. And so I'll just do that very briefly. And then chanting meditation, which you may not be so familiar with. And then Nimbutsu recitation as a form of meditation. And I'll be explaining that when we get to it. So first of all, in our Shin Buddhist tradition, we don't regard sitting meditation as like a practice in which I'm trying to attain enlightenment. Instead, we look at meditation as a way to settle ourselves, settle our hearts and minds, so that we can now listen to and receive the Dharma. Listen to and receive the Dharma. Listening is the focus in Shin Buddhism. So there's many ways to listen. We can listen to a Dharma talk or a sermon by a minister. We can read a book. We can have dialogue, a conversation with fellow Buddhists. In Shin Buddhism, anyone and anything can be a teacher. We might learn a great insight or something about the Dharma, even from a bartender or an Uber driver, or from our pet cat or dog, or even from someone that we regard as maybe our greatest enemy, the person that's a thorn in our side. Anyone and anything can be a teacher. So let's just do a few minutes of sitting meditation. First, we find our center, our back is straight, and then we're going to focus on our breathing. And inhale deeply, exhale deeply. We keep our eyes half open and half closed, rather than closing our eyes completely. And so we're just going to do a couple minutes of sitting meditation. I'd like to spend more time on the other two that you may not be familiar with. So at the sound of the bell, we begin a short sitting. So just a short sitting meditation. At your own home, you may choose to sit longer, maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes even. The length is not crucial, but some kind of quiet sitting in our Shin tradition, it helps us to listen to and to receive the teachings. So I'd like to tell a story that I learned from my teacher in Japan, Professor Shigaragi of Jukoku University, that to me illustrates the meaning that meditation holds for us in our everyday life. Once he told this unforgettable story. Once the Emperor of Japan petitioned two of the best artists in Japan to create a work of art for him in a particular room in his palace. So he had this room and he assigned one artist one wall and he assigned the other artist an adjoining wall. And he said, create some kind of work of art. I'm going to give you so many months. I'll come back and we'll unveil it on a certain day. So right away, the first artist began to think and then began to sketch a sort of a nature scene on his assigned wall. The second artist just kind of sat there and then began to sand the wall that he was assigned to. Well, weeks and months went by. The first artist is creating a beautiful mural on his wall, nature scene, mountains, trees, rivers. It's coming along very beautifully. The second artist, he's still sanding the wall, sanding. Yeah. People begin to think, gee, when is this guy going to get started? You can't disappoint the emperor in those days. What's he going to say when he sees an incomplete work of art? Well, the day came for the unveiling, and the second artist hadn't done anything other than sand the wall. What is the emperor going to say? Well, when they brought the emperor in, when they opened the doors, the light that came into that room, the light caused the beautiful mural on the one wall to be reflected on the other wall. Everyone was aghast at the beauty of the two together. The mural on one side, the reflection on the other wall. To me, meditation is like the blank wall. Our everyday life is nothing but activity. We have this busy life, not quite right now because we're all staying at home. We have this busy life, but if we don't have some kind of quiet pause, the blank wall is like what brings out the beauty of our normal life. So I think that, to me, that story shows the meaning of meditation. Without meditation, an inner beauty of our own life is not manifested. So in Shin Buddhism, meditation is not just about being calm. There also has to be this self-introspection. So always looking within ourselves. And that's the key part of meditation. Now I'd like to go to chanting meditation. So chanting is something that all Buddhists do. And in our Shin tradition, basically a service is quite simple. It's just some kind of sutra chanting and then a Dharma talk or a message. And the Dharma talk always follows the sutra chanting. So the sutra chanting has the function of settling us down. It also has the function of, in a religious ritual, we're expressing our respect to the Buddha, and it also helps to familiarize ourselves with the teachings. So I want to explain a little bit that I'm committing a grievous breach of the Buddhist etiquette here. The altar is behind me, so normally we would always chant facing the altar, but because the camera and the microphone is in my laptop, I have to do it this way. So I'm going to sort of face this way so I can chant along with you the text. And I think you can see and hear okay. So what we're going to experience, we're going to do it first, and then we'll talk about it later. So we're going to chant what is called the Jusei-ge, which is one of the most common chants in our Shin Buddhist tradition. So the yellow is the leader line. I'll do that, and then everyone comes in on the second line. So just to briefly show you the first line, Ga gon cho se gan kishi mujo do shi gan fu manzoku sei fujo shogaku. The underlined part is held a little bit longer. Okay, so let's give it a try. Ga gon cho se gan ishi mujo do shi gan fu manzo se fujo shoga ga o muryo ko ui dai se shu usai shobingu se fujo shoga ga shijo butsuro myosho choji po kugyo mi shomon se fujo shoga diokujin shonen joe shubongyo shigumu jodo isho tenninshi jinriki endai ko fusho musaido shoujo sankumyo kosai shuyakunan kaihi chi egen meshi komo an hesoku sho akudo tsudatsu zen shumon koso jo manzo ioroji po nichigatsu shujuki tenkon fugen ishu kai hozo kose kudoku ho jodai shuchu seppo shishiku kuyo isai but gusoku shutoku hon ganne shitsujo man tokui sangai yo nyobutsu mugechi tsudatsu fusho gangaku eri toshi saisho son shiganya koka daisen no kando koku shoten ni to uchin yoke namandabu 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 ganni shikudoku byodo sei sai dohon bodai shi ojo an sapo. So thank you for joining in on the future chanting. So what did we just chant? Now I'd like to give a little background on what we chanted, the Jusei-ge. In order to do that, I have to give background on the context, it comes from a sutra called the Larger Sutra of the Immeasurable Life. The Larger Sutra of the Immeasurable Life. It's one of the three main sutras of Pure Land Buddhism, of our Shin Buddhist tradition. So sutras are the sermons or Dharma talks of Shakyamuni Buddha that were then written later by his followers. So Shakyamuni Buddha's enlightenment was very deep and profound, and his great challenge was how to communicate that profound heart of enlightenment to people who had never experienced enlightenment. It's like trying to talk about love to someone who has never fallen in love. It's like talking about sadness to someone who has never experienced the deep sadness of losing a loved one. So there was always that gap between his experience and the experience of his followers who had never experienced enlightenment. So like a wonderful teacher, the Buddha often told stories to express his deepest innermost heart. And so the Largest Sutra expresses a very profound story or a myth. So the hero of the story of the Largest Sutra is a bodhisattva named Dharmakara. So Dharmakara is Luke Skywalker in the Largest Sutra. He's the hero of the story. And like all great stories, it starts out once upon a time, long, long ago, there was a king. But this king happened to encounter a Buddha. And when he met this Buddha, he was so inspired. He had never met someone so wise, so compassionate, so dynamic. And so the king gave up his throne, gave up being a king to become a truth seeker, to become a bodhisattva. Doesn't that story remind you of someone already? Isn't it Shakyamuni Buddha's own life? He was a prince, gave up being a prince, went on this long religious search. So we can see that he's expressing his own sort of life story through this story in the Larger Sutra. So Dharmakara becomes a truth seeker, a bodhisattva, seeking enlightenment for himself, but at the same time, with this deep wish to save or liberate all sentient beings from the world of samsara. So this Jusege, which we just chanted, is a short poem or song that expresses Dharmakara's deepest wish, and that is the part of this Larger Sutra of the Immeasurable Life. So the Larger Sutra teaches us several things. It teaches us how a Buddha thinks and feels, what's in the Buddha's heart and mind. And at the same time, it also teaches us what an unenlightened person thinks and feels, in contrast to how a Buddha thinks and feels. So the sutra teaches us what is a timeless Buddha. So Shakyamuni Buddha was a historical person, but through this story, he relates timeless Buddha. Dharmakara becomes a Buddha by the name of Amida, the timeless Buddha. So Amida Buddha is the timeless heart of Shakyamuni Buddha, which is great wisdom and great compassion. So I just want to share this first line of the Jusege, Ga Gon Cho Se Gan, in which Dharmakara expresses his deepest wish. So if you look at the Chinese characters, it's quite interesting. So these are the characters, Ga Gon Cho Se Gan. The first character means I, but here the person speaking is Dharmakara. So Shakyamuni Buddha is telling the story, and in the Jusege, Dharmakara is saying I, Dharmakara I make, Gon, a vow, Gan. But what kind of vow? A vow that transcends the world. Cho means to transcend, Se means world. So Dharmakara says, I make a vow that transcends all worldly vows, all worldly vows. So in life, we have many worldly wishes. We may want a new car, a new home, a different job. We want to find the love of our life. And we pursue these things thinking that they will be the source of our ultimate happiness. But Buddhism is saying that those worldly wishes, although there's nothing wrong with them, they will not be the source of our ultimate happiness. So we'll never be truly happy by trying to fulfill our worldly wishes. So the Juseiga teaches us to have a wish that transcends worldly wishes, to have a wish that transcends worldly wishes. Let me just give you a little example. Right now, our doctors and nurses are at the front line of fighting this terrible pandemic. Now, let's say we have two different nurses. Nurse A became a nurse because he or she wanted a nice retirement and wanted a nice income. And nurse A goes to the hospital and every day thinks, oh, this is too much work. The doctors are difficult to deal with. They give me too many patients, and on and on and on. Finally, oh, is it quitting time yet? No, I've got 2 more hours on my shift. That's nurse A. Nurse B, however, has a wish that transcends the world. Nurse B became a nurse because he or she wanted to heal the sick. That's why they became a nurse. So nurse B goes to the hospital every day, helping this patient, helping that patient, helping this doctor, helping that doctor, and then looks at their watch and, oh my gosh, it's time to go home already? See the difference between the two nurses? So if we have a deep wish for our own life, something that transcends the world, that is a very powerful way to live. So now I just want to share a little bit about Nembutsu recitation. Nembutsu recitation. Sorry, a little background noise there. Our gardener is taking care of our yard right now. So the Nembutsu is Namu Ami Dabutsu. Namu Ami Dabutsu. So Namu literally means to bow, to bow one's head, to take refuge. Amida Butsu means Amida Buddha. Amida Buddha that I talked about just a little bit ago about the larger sutra. So Bodhisattva Dharmakara, the hero of the larger sutra, becomes Amida Buddha, becomes Amida Buddha. So when we say Namu Amida Butsu, we're saying I bow my head, I take refuge in Amida Buddha. But what does that mean? It means that I bow my head to the timeless Buddha, to the truth of enlightenment, the contents of enlightenment, which are wisdom and compassion. Namu Amida Butsu. I bow my head, I open my heart and mind to wisdom and compassion. So in that act of Nembutsu, of saying Namu Amida Butsu, I, as an unenlightened being, I become one with the heart of the Buddha, which is wisdom and compassion. So there are various ways we can say the Nembutsu. We can say the full word, Namu Amida Butsu. When we just chanted a bit ago, we were just doing the abbreviated form, and we were chanting, saying Namandabu, Namandabu. Also, many Shin Buddhists recite the Nembutsu by saying Namandabutsu, Namandabutsu. So it can be done any of those ways. So let's do a little bit of Nembutsu recitation, meditation. And we're going to recite the Nembutsu sort of over and over, repetitiously. Namandabu, Namandabu. I'll start it with the bell. Namandabu, 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 Namandabu. So for the Shin Buddhist follower, the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu, that we were saying over and over, it's not just a word, it's not just a recitation, but it is a deep and profound truth. It is a profound truth through which we connect with and we come to receive the heart of the Buddha, wisdom and compassion. It is also the source of our spiritual strength. It fulfills our life, whether our life is short or long. No one knows the duration of our own life, but whether short, whether long, the Nembutsu fulfills our life. It gives us great insight, joy, and gratitude. So through the Nembutsu, we touch what is timeless, meaning we transcend life and death. We transcend life and death, and we encounter immeasurable life. You know, the theme of the larger Sutra of Immeasurable Life is this essence of life. To me, the Sutra is not talking about some kind of eternal life, about living forever and ever. It's talking about living our true life, a dynamic life, immeasurable life. And when we encounter that, then we transcend the duality of life and death. So during this coronavirus stay at home isolation, we might feel very, very alone. But in the Dharma, we are never alone. Namo Amida Butsu means we're always one with the world of Buddha. So a Shin Buddhist, you can choose to quietly say the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, or Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, in your own everyday life, whether you're quietly sitting alone, whether you're in the garden, working in the garden, maybe you're going for a walk, maybe you're jogging, maybe you're driving on the freeway, and you can quietly recite the Nembutsu. And this too is sort of a form of meditation within our everyday life. And it brings the heart of the Buddha to us as we live our everyday life. So that is Namu Amida Butsu, the Nembutsu. So I apologize, the little technical glitches there, and I have to do it from the side like that. I hope that you were able to see and hear okay. I'd like to spend the remaining time, if I can respond to any questions that you might have. I'd be happy to take any questions at this time, Eliza, if anyone has any questions.
All right, well, thank you so much, Reverend Harada, for sharing those practices with us. And we'll start to share questions. And everyone, if you'd like to submit any, just find the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and type it in right there. So we have a question from Dennis. I'm going to summarize it because it's a little long, but he says, since the quarantine has started, his downstairs neighbor has been very angry with him because of the noise of his kids running around. And this has led to a lot of conflict and the downstairs neighbor insulting him, and he's trying to do Tong-led meditation. He's trying to take the downstairs neighbor as his teacher. And he asks, what should my best approach to transform this conflict in food for my spiritual path?
That's a challenging situation. It's sometimes difficult to get along with our neighbors. I know you must be doing the best you can to keep your children as quiet as possible. But of course, it's impossible when you have young children like that. I don't know, maybe a little gift offering. Maybe the children make something, a craft, or bake cookies and offer that to the neighbor and say, gee, I'm sorry, maybe we sometimes we make a little too much noise, but this is just a little gift from my children. I don't know if that helps or not. You know, for those of us who hear annoying noises like that, let me just share this quick story. I once visited a member who was dying of cancer, and he had some young children, and I was upstairs with him, talking with him. His children were downstairs. They were playing. They're making a big ruckus, a lot of noise. And I was talking to him, trying to counsel him, but he said to me, Reverend, stop, listen to that. Isn't it beautiful? See, to this dying man, the sound of his children making a ruckus, it was the most beautiful sound. So if we could hear the sound of children playing in that manner, it would be wonderful. I hope that your neighbor can come to have that kind of perspective in hearing the noise of your children. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Harada. So we have a question from Beryl. She says, thank you deeply for the teachings. Could you please talk about the sound component of chanting and how that deepens the sutra?
I see. So initially, when you're not familiar with it, it's going to feel awkward chanting it, and it's a foreign language, of course. But in time, if you continue with it, you, I think, find that chanting it in a foreign language, it's a different feeling than if we chant it in English. So we could take the English translation of the Jusei and you could read it or try to chant it, but then it becomes kind of too cerebral. I think chanting should be done as a sort of a spiritual ritual activity. And then after you've chanted it, then you could study it and read the English translation of what you just chanted. But it doesn't matter. Some people have a beautiful chanting voice, some don't. So, that makes no difference in a spiritual sense. So the more you do it, you become more familiar with it, and the sound of it becomes even more enriching and beautiful to you in time. But in the beginning, it's a little awkward. Thank you.
Thank you. We have two questions that I think go well together. One, MT is asking, when saying Namu Amida Butsu, should my mind be empty, or should I try to think of Amida Butsu? And Kem has a question, how can we cultivate a feeling of devotion if we come from an atheist upbringing, but we want to reach our higher self / Buddhahood within?
Okay, let me take the first one, and then you might have to repeat the second one to me. So the first one, what should we be thinking about as we're saying Namu Amida Butsu? Okay, and so you don't have to try to think of anything, nor should you try not to think of anything. Simply say it. Like if you're saying it in a service, or you're in front of your altar, you're expressing your respect, reverence to the Buddha, but your mind might be preoccupied with work or something like that. And saying the Nembutsu, I think, will help clear your mind of many of those thoughts. My teacher that I studied under, Reverend Gyomei Kubose, the Buddhist temple of Chicago, he used to say, when you get angry, try saying Namu Amida Butsu. First, I thought that was pretty strange, actually. You're angry. Are you supposed to say Namu Amida Butsu, Namu Amida Butsu? No, he didn't mean that. But when we get angry, if we say softly to ourselves Namu Amida Butsu, then our anger kind of softens a little bit. then we might be able to reflect and see ourselves a little bit. Gee, how come I'm so upset? How come I'm so mad about this? So even when we're angry, Reverend Kubose said, try saying Namo Amida Butsu. You might see that your anger subsides. And can you repeat the second question to me again?
Yes. How can we cultivate a feeling of devotion if we come from an atheist upbringing, but we wish to reach our higher self or our Buddhahood within?
I see. We all come from different backgrounds. So some may come from a Judeo-Christian background. Some may come from a background where you did not have that in your culture. So when we face the Buddha, or when we say, I take refuge in Amida Buddha is not a god or deity, but it is the content of enlightenment. So I'm bowing my head to this truth of enlightenment, wisdom and compassion, which is not a being, but this act of devotion, the act of bowing, humbling oneself, it opens up our heart and mind to receive something deeper, something beyond our small, limited ego self. I don't know if that's a good answer, but that's maybe the best way I can answer that question at this time.
Thank you. Sanid, it says, my father has Alzheimer's and lives in another country. I am struggling with the thought that I may not hold his hand again and he may die alone. Can you advise me?
Yes. So Shinran Shonin, the founder of our particular form of Buddhism, he has a beautiful poem in which he says, when you're all alone, think that there are two of you. And if there are just two of you, think that there are three of you. And the third person will be I, Shinran. So in this poem, Shinran Shonin is saying that his heart and mind is one with all beings, past, present, and into the future, in this truth of Namo Amida Butsu. So although you may not be able to be with your father who is suffering from Alzheimer's, in this truth of the Dharma, in Namo Amida Butsu, your heart can be one with his, and your heart, when it becomes one with the heart of the Buddha, it's one with all of life, with all beings. Thank you for that question.
Thank you so much. Julie has a question. She says there are so many ways that the Buddha taught. Do all of them lead us to the same place?
I would say so. Shakyamuni Buddha, when he was teaching, his audience was so varied. Sometimes he's speaking to farmers. If he's speaking to farmers, he's talking in a way that farmers can relate to. If he's speaking to a group of philosophers, he's going to speak very philosophically in a way that philosophers can relate to. I just mentioned Reverend Kubose. When he spoke at my home temple, I grew up in Eastern Oregon, and they're all farmers there. So when he spoke at my temple in Eastern Oregon, I couldn't believe this wonderful sermon he gave. He said to the Sangha, or the congregation at my home temple there, he said to all of them, now all you farmers, tomorrow when you go out to the fields, I want you to gasho to your onions. They're all onion farmers. My dad was an onion farmer. I want you to gasho to your onions. And they all kind of laughed, But then he said, but your onions are your life. Your onions are your life. Without your onions, you don't have your life as a farmer. So you should gasho to your onions. So a doctor should gasho to the patient. A school teacher should gasho to your students. A businessman should gasho to your customers. So this is sort of Buddhism in sort of our everyday life experience. I don't know if that was a good way of answering, but thank you for your question.
Thank you. That was lovely. So the next question is from Jamie Goya, who says, hello.
I know her, yes.
Great.
Hi.
She misses your teachings while she's in Hawaii. And she's glad to see you're doing well. And she says, well, most of the time I'm in isolation. There are times you have to go out to get essentials. How do we deal with the anxiety of going out while outside in crowds without looking like a crazy person muttering Namo Amida Butsu to oneself constantly?
Yes, well, I guess that's where, if our life is kind of grounded in the Dharma, then whether we're alone, whether we're with a group of people, we kind of take that sort of grounding, centeredness with us, kind of wherever we go. So a person who really lives like that, they can calm even a huge group of people. So the store people might be quite anxious, but if you yourself live with a sort of a groundedness and a calmness, you're there getting your groceries like everyone else. You hope that they don't have it, but you hope that you don't have it and are not giving it to them. So mutually, we sort of respect each other and are concerned about each other. So maybe that's how we can best go to the store in this kind of situation. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you for that answer. We have some questions about one question John is asking, could you please describe the altar, which is visible just over your left shoulder?
Oh,
and
yes.
Alejandro also would love to know more about the beads that you have in your hand.
Oh, okay. So this is a sort of a typical home altar that a Shin Buddhist might have. This is meaningful to me because it was my grandmother's home altar, and I received it when my grandmother passed away. She brought it from Japan. So the altar has either a statue of the Buddha, or in this case, it's just a little picture scroll with a picture of Amida Buddha. And on the left-hand side is usually a flower. On the right side is usually a candle, and then an incense burner in the middle. And that's where Shin Buddhist pays respect to the teachings at their own home. So that one. What was the follow-up question to that?
The other question was about the beads that you have in your hand.
Oh, the beads. Oh, yes. Okay. Okay. The beads can be called either ojuzu, which means counting beads, or it can be called nenju, sort of contemplation beads. So a complete set of beads has 108 beads, and that represents the faults of man. We're greedy, we get angry. Buddhism lists 108. We never realized we had so many, but we have 108 sort of faults. And so we hold this in our left hand because the left hand represents unenlightened me. And the right hand symbolizes sight of Buddha, enlightenment. So those two come together in this posture of respect, which we call gasho, two hands coming together with the beads sort of unifying them. And we bow our heads this way. So this is how Buddhists, in Shin Buddhism, we pay deep respect or reverence. And you can have beads like this. This is also, it's called a wrist ojuzu. And I can wear it as a bracelet, as a reminder of the teaching. And this is also another ojuzu or nenju.
Thank you. So we have time for a few more questions. Jane says that the biggest challenge during this time is dealing with the fear and the anxiety of a loved one getting sick or getting sick themselves. So in moments when the fear and the anxiety start to take over my mind, do you suggest simply employing one of these three types of meditation at the exact moment to try to stop the thoughts of fear from growing bigger? How can we quiet our minds, even during something like sitting meditation, so that we can stop the fear and anxiety from taking over?
Mm-hmm. I would be more concerned about finding sort of your center, the ground of your being, such that when fear and anxiety comes up, you kind of sense it and you're able to deal with it, rather than trying to address the fear and anxiety as it's there. I have this fear and anxiety, now what do I do? If we become more grounded, which I think Buddhism can do, those three forms of meditation can assist us in becoming more grounded. But coming to understand the teachings better, we can be more grounded, such that when that fear and anxiety comes up, you sense it, almost like you have a seeing yourself, like, oh, I'm sensing this fear and anxiety coming up with me. Maybe I'll take a couple of deep breaths. Maybe I should just tell myself there's nothing to worry about. Maybe I can say Nembutsu, but to sense it when it's arising, but to have this sort of foundation of your life. I think that's what's important. But a very good point. Thank you.
Thank you. So Nancy says, for a novice practitioner, there are so many traditions of Buddhism. How does one know where to begin, which traditions to follow, and which practices?
Yes. Well, I think there was also the question earlier about, do all the paths lead to the same goal? I think each tradition, we can look at it also like a gate to the castle. So there's this gate, there's that gate, there's this other gate, and every tradition of Buddhism is offering a different gateway into this castle. And so which one to choose? So you have to kind of, I think it's good to check out different traditions, and in so doing, find the one that sort of resonates with you, connects with you, and then pursue that. And if that doesn't work out, then you can try a different gate. But one teacher that I learned from said, but don't spend all your time around the outside of the castle, just only looking at the gate. We have to go in. We have to go in deeper into the teaching. So at some point in time, you need to choose a path or tradition and pursue that a little more deeply. Thank you for the good point.
Thank you. So we'll just do two more questions so we can wrap up. Leslie says thank you, and she asks if you have any recommendations for reading or for film or for media.
Well, for our Shin Buddhist tradition, one of the most popular books that I recommend in the beginning is Reverend Kubose's Everyday Suchness. Everyday Suchness. You may not find it at a Barnes and Noble, but I think you can find a copy. It's a wonderful book on his essays of Shin Buddhism in terms of everyday life. So Everyday Suchness is excellent. There is an English book of the teacher I mentioned, Professor Shigaragi. I think it's called The Buddhist World of Awakening, which is outstanding. There's the late Taitetsu Unno. He has a couple of wonderful books on Shin Buddhism, one called River Fire, River Water. There is Professor Ken Tanaka, who has a book called Ocean. That's a good introductory level. So those are some books that I can recommend.
Thank you so much. And if anyone wants to look back at that list, it'll be in the recording that's posted online. So one final question is, if anyone would like to follow up by getting in touch with you or by learning more about Shin Buddhism, where should they go?
Yes. So let's see. There's presently I'm with the Buddhist Churches of America. So there's a website called Buddhist Churches of America.org. You can go there. And my work email is mharada, just mharada at bcahq.org. mharada at bcahq.org. Feel free to send me an email if you care to.
Great, thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to wrap up, Reverend Harada, before we go to the final notes?
No, thank you very much, everyone, for participating. I hope that everyone can get through this difficult time as best we can.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time to share with us today, Reverend Harada, and sharing your teachings. Just to remind everyone, we have another online practice coming up Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern with Sebene Selassie. And you can keep checking tricycle.org/live to see the recording of today's talk, past talks, and to see what's coming up. And as we said, we're offering these sessions for free. So if you would like to support this and our offer efforts, you can consider donating at tricycle.org/donate. And we're very grateful for everyone who has already generously donated. So I'd just like to wish that everyone is healthy and safe and has a wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you.